Hello to anyone who is lurking and or watching in the future. So, I found out earlier this week that today is or this week, uh, s- you know, uh, that today is about the end of non-binary awareness week, with yesterday being International Non-Binary People's Awareness Day. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna throw together some kind of a, I don't know, like maybe a panel stream or something. And yes, Mage, yes, it was. And so I figured, maybe I'd throw together some kind of panel stream. Basically, I wanted to do something for non-binary uh awareness week / non-binary people's day. It was scheduled for yesterday, but life happened. um and so you might be thinking, Ring, you're by gender, why are you doing something for NB week? Well, I explained it. It's explained in my pinned Twitter thread. But here's a brief overview to talk about how I view my gender, because it's might as well. So the way I see it, I'm operating under the definition that trans does not, equals not cis. And cis is, you know you align with the gender you were assigned with at birth. And we may have like the entirety of July for the NBs. But anyways, so by not identifying with the gender I was assigned with at birth, or at least not all the time, I'm I'm therefore trans. So I fall under the trans umbrella under that not cis definition. Now, under so then we have, binary trans and non-binary trans, So binary trans is where you, you know, align with the opposite of extreme of the bimodal gender spectrum than you were assigned with at birth, and live. Non-binary falls, you know, is everything that falls outside of the binary. So, and so thus gender fluid falls, falls under non-binary in my opinion. And also, and by gender, where you kind of swing between the two, the two extremes, um, falls under gender fluid. Though I will say that now I'm in a much less stressful living situation. My swings aren't as extreme, but obviously I am swinging currently in the middle of in the process of a at least 2 week long fem swing. So there, there's a little bit about why I'm doing a non-binary awareness, week, International Non-Binary People's Day stream, be it about a day late because of life. But, and since I am terrible at getting a panel together on the fly, I figure we're gonna go over to the channel favorite, good old channel favorite, Plugged In, and look at their review for a movie that I caught on Netflix and I absolutely loved. It made me feel things that an animated movie on Netflix should not make me feel. and we're going to go and take a look over what Plugged In has to say about it. This is your spoiler warning for Nimona. I really enjoyed Nimona. I'm probably going to lobby pretty hard for having it either as an NB Week episode next year, or have it, included in the Pride Month slate, because even before even just watching, coming into the movie blind, it has gender fluid vibes. I was picking up major vibes. So anyways, without further ado, because I do want to try and be done before Life from the Hive starts. But anyways, and gonna jump right in. I'm skipping the preamble, because preamble just basically goes over the plot of the movie. But anyways, so yes, but I do prefer I do prefer to be something of a benevolent dictatress. I do prefer to be democratic when possible. When it comes to, when there's time to be democratic, I prefer to be democratic. So positive. So we're gonna go ahead and go, jump in. So, positive elements. Nimona's reasons for helping Ballister in his time of need is simple and selfless. It's because everyone currently hates him, and she knows what that feels like. While she initially thinks that he's a villain, she slowly comes around to helping Ballister clear his name. When she finds out he's innocent, we also see Nimona save the lives of a few other people too. Despite the entirety of the city being against Ballister, he remains hopeful that he can fix and explain everything. His mentality he's carried with him even before he was afraid for the Queen's murder. Optimistically persevering in his quest to become a knight, even when many of the city felt it was wrong. And to that end, Queen Valerian certainly does good in pushing back against such a class system. Keep in mind that they're saying this. It's going to become very ironic later in the review. And while the animation style didn't exactly gel with me at the beginning, you kind of grow to enjoy it. Not necessarily. This isn't a Media Musings episode. I'm just going over a Plugged In review because I couldn't get a panel together, and I wanted to do something for Non-Binary Day, even though I'm a day late. So, spiritual elements. Over the last 1,000 years, after Glorith made her nightly proclamation, the warrior has become deified in the city. Let's see. The director who heads the institution with the Knights Are Apart speaks about having a prophetic dream about monsters breaking through a crack in the city wall. Furthermore, the institution the director leads conducts itself with a near holy reverence. Oh, and no, I haven't, but that is a very interesting title. And so I'm gonna pause real quick. So for those of you who are having trouble accessing groups on Twitter, Elon Musk did a thing. Basically, he made it so that he basically added a third option to who can DM you. So it's like everyone can request DMs from me. Only people I follow can, request DMs from me. Well, he added another is only verified people can request DMs from me. So if groups are DM groups aren't working for you on Twitter, go to your settings, make sure that isn't in there or that isn't checked, because basically Elon Musk made it so that's auto selected on everyone's profile. So, go in there, make sure that that's not auto selected, and you should be able to work groups normally. Because, of course, unless you're in a group where everyone is, unless you're already in a group of Musk simps, you're probably not in a group where everyone is verified. So that's why people are having trouble accessing groups. But anyways, back to what I was. Yeah. So gotta love Musk's brilliant plan here. Okay, but so keep in mind the bit I highlighted, pushing back against such a class system. The institution that the director leads conducts itself with a near holy reverence. This is likely no accident. Nimona is based on a graphic novel by cartoonist N.D. Stevenson, who was raised in a Christian household and discusses in interviews the battle against the gender essentialism of their upbringing. As such, this institution is likely supposed to represent the Christian church. Nimona transforms into a young boy and pretends to act like he's possessed. Nimona transforms into a young boy and likes to pretends to act like they're possessed as they torment a man. They float after the man with their limbs hanging limp at their sides, their eyes pure white, causing the man to scream, "That little demon baby is after me." Nimona later transforms into a gargantuan shadowy beast. Those are the spiritual elements that Plugged In is complaining about. Now, And the reason I'm using they for Nimona is because, at least in the movie, the character is only gendered by other characters. So, and both the film and the graphic novel in which Nimona is based are inherently about transness and gender fluidity at its heart. The eponymous character's shape-shifting ability is used as a way to convey them not having their own true identity. When Nimona shapeshifts into being a male child, Ballister comments on Nimona now being a boy. "I am today," Nimona remarks. And yeah, so like I said, it's like 100% gender fluid vibes. And to this end, it is relevant to note that Nimona author Stevenson identifies as bigender. Woo! So, and then Plugged In complaining about Ballister and a secondary character having a gay relationship, violent content. There is a bunch of like, there is a bunch. Like, it's nothing that I'd say is more than G-rated. There's a lot of slapstick violence. I'm not gonna. But so here's what I mean about Plugged In being essentially a censorship guide masquerading as a review site. Basically, what they do is they go and they nitpick every little thing that a Christian household could find objectionable, and then they put it and they list it all and say, here's the reasons why you can ban this in your house if you feel like it. And of course, the one positive element section is about, here's how you can justify allowing it if you do choose to allow it. So the small amount of props that I can give Plugged In is that they do ostensibly offer the choice. But so, cruder profane language at the end of the film, and S word is cut off. We hear misuse of God's name. Funny, I don't remember hearing the word Yahweh in the movie. We also hear a couple other words like heck and dang. People additionally say things like "oh my gloreth." Hey, Mage.
Hello. That's messed up with what they're doing on Twitter. Anyway, back to what you're doing. Your review.
Yeah. See, a man laughs because Ballister thought he was apologizing for the way he... So, other negative elements. A man laughs because Ballister thought he was apologizing for the way he treated Ballister growing up. Because, he's not a noble, but the queen's like, let him try out to be a knight. Man has no intention of apologizing, causing others around him to laugh too. Nimona vandalizes and breaks many things. Nimona laughs at a knight who urinated his armor out of fear. People call Nimona a monster due to their ability to shapeshift, attacking and hurting them. I am specifically saying them because, like, even in the review, Plugged In said, Plugged In acknowledges that it is an allegory for, for a gender fluid experience. And also Nimona as a character never ever genders themselves. All the other characters do gender that, do call Nimona by, she, her genders, but so let's see. Conclusion. See, I've always been a fan of the 1999 animated movie, The Iron Giant. It tells the story of a robot that crashes Earth. And but the boy teaches the robot that it doesn't have to be a monster if it doesn't want to be. It gets to choose. Some way Nimona parallels a lot of that story. Both Nimona and Balsor are labeled as monsters by a society that refuses to see them as anything, but even when they do their best to show that they're good, also it deviates in many ways. Nimona often, while the Iron Giant doesn't actually want to hurt anyone, Nimona often gets joy in thinking about tormenting others. Honestly, as the movie goes on, it very much feels like it's less they're actually a psychopath and more like they're lashing out at a system that has literally demonized them. Nimona is about people in power oppressing those who identify as gender fluid. Those in power are part of the church-like monarchy who call such shapeshifters monsters. The irony of Nimona releasing at the end of Pride Month, when the powers in our own society celebrate such identities, isn't lost on us. But even if we sidestep the film's socio-political allegory, Nimona has some other concerns that parents will want to consider. The violence is some of the violence can get a bit dicey. And once again, Plugged In is doing it's Plugged In is doing its here's examples that you can use for when you want to say that you're banning it in the house. It's not because you're a transphobe or a homophobe or a right-wing fundagelical nutcase. No, it's because the violence is, bad. So we also see someone trying to attempt suicide. Okay, so here's your major spoiler warning here. If you don't want to spoil, you don't want to be spoiled, go ahead and, click away, go watch Nimona, then finish watching this. The person trying to attempt suicide is Nimona. Because of how society has treated them, they turn into a kaiju and start like what looks like a rampage, but instead they're going to like impale themselves on a statue of a knight holding a sword, and it's only so. I find that it's interesting that Plugged In doesn't. I mean, it is a pretty big spoiler, which is why I mentioned that. Hey, if you don't want to be spoiled, click away, watch it, come back. But like I can understand that it's a big spoiler, but it is also a big point in it's an effect of the society. It's not exactly I found it interesting that Plugged In included that sentence, but not the context, because the context is very important right there. And I understand that most people who read a Plugged In article, it's pointed, it's pointed at fundagelical parents who want to be able to censor their kids' media consumption. Essentially, they want, and so the people that Plugged In reviews are directed at will read the Plugged In review first and then decide based off the review whether or not to allow such content into their household or to go, see it in the theaters. So I understand, like, on the trigger, on the content warning, on the spoiler warning, I understand why not adding the context is, kind of makes sense. But on the other hand, someone who just reads this review and decides on whether or not they're going to allow it into their household won't get that context and will just use this. This is basically an allegory for, like, this is basically a living allegory for the trans, we shouldn't let trans people be their gender because of the suicide risk thing. Let me know if I'm rambling or off base page, but do you see that? Do you see that as well, or am I just crazy?
Well, as far as I know, the best way to handle somebody being suicidal due to the gender thing is let them transition.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is, like, including the the fact that there's an attempted suicide that's it included in the review that no one will read, or rather people will read and then decide to not let their kids watch the movie, feels like equivalent to using the suicide rate to rail against the LGBT community.
Yeah, possibly. So if this whole thing is set up to say, oh no, we're not against LGBT, we were banning it for these reasons. That next point kind of defeats that purpose.
Oh no, no, I meant that, saying the depiction of this, the depiction of the suicide attempt in the movie, as a reason not to watch, or not to let your kids watch the movie, is equivalent. It is basically an equivalent argument. I don't know. It just feels like an apt metaphor or allegory that just happened to happen, if that makes sense. Then, as well as these issues, we see a couple of same-sex interactions between a couple of main characters and a few sexual jokes. That's quite a litany of issues for a PG film, obviously aimed right at kids. There's the groomer talk. Nimona doesn't just have a story to tell, it has an axe to grind and an agenda to push. It makes a valid point that we should not treat anyone, no matter how much we disagree with them, as monsters. I feel like, am I the only one who is dying of irony that is showing up in a Focus on the Family review?
Well, at least it didn't go past their heads.
But in the words of Nimona, we should question everything, and that means holding everything up to an objective standard which can ultimately only be found through biblical scrutiny. And when stories run so counter to what we know to be true, especially stories designed for our children, in pretty little italics, we should kindly turn off the screen and gently show them the door. Yeah. Yeah, I like, I don't know. I feel like I'm the only atheist content creator who actually knows Plugged In exists, which is why I'm kind of like bringing their reviews into my content.
I think this is the first time I've heard of them too, and I tend to be out in the ether there with these kind of
Yeah.
review sites.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's partially because I grew up in a content restricted, fundagelical household, and my parents used Plug It, like when Plugged In Online became a thing, they used it to double check and make sure if movies were okay for us to see. But yeah, basically I was trying to say that, including that bit about suicide without the context that it's the society that drives the attempt, kind of felt like an equivalent, especially when they're using the suicide attempt as a reason not to see, not to let your kids see the movie. But anyways, Mage, any non-binary awareness stuff you want to bring up? Or
No, I can't really think of any.
Yeah.
At least not
But yeah,
off the top of my head.
Yeah, like there's a reason I like to describe Plugged In as a censorship guide masquerading as a review service.
It's definitely nitpicky with what you were pointing out there.
Yeah. And that's why, and if anyone's been watching or the past recent media musings episode, it's why we're including Plugged In articles when available.
Well, like I said, I haven't seen the movie yet. I saw the trailer. I thought the character looked annoying. The Nomona character looked annoying. I was like, oh, this is gonna be crap. And then I'm started seeing these reviews coming in, like, oh, this is actually a good show. And I think so far I've only seen one negative review.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, so. The worst thing I can say about it is the animation style didn't exactly gel with me at the beginning, but as the movie gets on, you kind of get into it.
I heard some of the storytelling in the beginning of the movie was a little off, and then it kind of explains itself later on near the end of the movie. It's kind of how was one of the reviews I saw said that.
I think that's because Well, if I were to guess, that review is referring to the fact that you get the official, like heavily propagandized version of of like the world building backstory in the beginning, and then there's a sequence near the end where you see what really happened. And since we kind of ran out of things to say, I'll go ahead and chill. Tomorrow we are doing Knives Out for Media Musings. And hold on, I should have also, if anyone is in the vicinity of Missoula, Montana, tomorrow evening around 7 p.m., there is a band called Evening Redness Out West that is opening for a gig at the skate park there. Maybe you should go check them out. You have anything to shill, Mage?
Well, I need to work on my next video for my channel Gardens Happen. Hopefully I'll have that out in the next day or two. And I don't know, I suppose I should mention, I'm not sure how I'm going to get the word out on my movie night thing, seeing as the DMs are kind of messed up right now.
Yeah, thank you, Elon.
But I was planning on doing Forbidden Planet for Monday at 9 p.m. That's the Eastern Standard Time. It's a private thing, so it's only goes through only DMs. Or if you happen to be in the Purple's Discord group, I'll put it there.
Yeah, if it weren't for the fact that my work schedule says no, I would probably want to watch that because Forbidden Planet, or I'd probably want to jump in on that because Forbidden Planet is one of my favorite classic sci-fi movies.
I also been trying to do a thing where I gather some trivia for the movie. I'm posting that throughout the movie as well.
Yeah.
So it's a little added thing.
It's horrifically dated and cheesy, and I unironically love it for it. But with that, do you have any taglines?
Nope, I don't really do taglines.
Okay, then I'll just say that remember, indoctrination is a hell of a drug. And